Hi guys, this is Sheldon, and in this video series I will try to go over each class on Turtle WoW, covering all their changes, their new abilities, and how these might affect their capabilities in both leveling, PvE and PvP, as well as how they might create new opportunities for new builds and playstyles. And in today's video, we'll be taking a closer look at the Shaman here on Turtle WoW. Shaman changes revolve around fleshing out the class, melee damage and healing specializations, alongside tackling major issues within its ranged facet through talent compression and overhaul. We sought to have their trees properly function as the framework on which the class's diverse iterations could flourish, rendering their capstone worthy of investment without stifling hybridization between the specializations. So that last part they're referencing here is that you would likely go with, where are we? You would likely go get Lightning Mastery and then not take Elemental Mastery because you would like to have Nature Swiftness. Because once you reach end game and a high enough gear level, you're going to crit a lot anyway. So having a 100% chance of critting is not that interesting. But now they did something with this, and you can already see that this, when activated, this spell gives you 2 stacks of Electrify. Let's see what that means, but let's take it one thing at a time. Baseline changes. Many of the changes you'll read about further below aim to introduce quality of life changes to the class, both during leveling and in its gameplay at level 6. I like that they don't just consider level 60 endgame when they do changes. They are also considering how does this feel while leveling, how does this feel in all aspects of the game. We aim to introduce these changes while preserving its mechanical and thematic flavor, as well as rendering its progression in the endgame accessible to players without losing sight of Shaman's ability to perform competitively with different pieces of gear and talent choices, spanning multiple trees. Mana cost reductions. Increases to the duration of class enhancements, elemental shields and totems, allowing Shaman's enhancement focused toolkit, namely their shocks and elemental shields, to also scale with a portion of their attack power. That's very interesting. I must say I kind of like that. That's also going to differentiate it a lot from the Paladin, that the Paladin doesn't seem to have this scaling with their elemental damage, but a lot of Paladin gear has, a lot of Retribution gear has spell power on it, so it doesn't maybe matter as much, but it's just having some difference, so it's not so homogenized. I think I like that. So nice. Wind Fury Totem went through major changes, which goes as follows. The totem effect is now an aura, not an imbue. This proc only works for main hand attacks, meaning that the totem works the way it did before the change, but does not compete with the temporary weapon enchants, meaning that rogues can still enchant their weapon with their poisons, and you can still enchant your weapon with whatever oils and stuff like that, and not lose your Wind Fury totem. So that's a much needed change, I think. So very welcomed. The totem now only has 1 rank. Actually, I like that. Shouldn't be too powerful. It can be too much of a game changer. The totem no longer grants attack power. Yes, that's good. I think many people would be like, oh no, but you know, getting an extra attack is still powerful, right? You just want to allocate most of the Shaman's power to himself, so it doesn't just become a buff class, right? This effect now has an internal cooldown of 1.5 seconds instead of 1 second. Okay, that's fine, I think. Shaman's imbues take priority over the totem, meaning that the totem does not affect the Shaman while any of their imbues are active. Okay. Doesn't say anything about the proc chance. So, and I can't remember what the proc chance actually is, but it doesn't seem to have been changed. Flame Tongue Totem, I hope they're doing something with this, because this was just once again one of those, like the Hunter has a lot of unused waste stuff, so does the Shaman. Went through a few changes, which goes as follows. The effect is now aura, now stacks with Wind Fury Totem. Interesting. So you can have both totems up at the same time. That seems powerful. No longer scales spell power. Okay, so they nerfed it in another way. Shaman's imbue, but it didn't do that in vanilla anyway, so that's a later thing they probably added here in Turtle. Shaman's imbues take priority, blah blah blah. It's the same thing as before. The extra damage granted by this totem can no longer trigger unhit effects. That seems fair in a way, because else you would always want this one if you have a special effect on your weapon, like an enchant or proc effect. But this could be too much if it affected everyone in a raid. Developer comment. We are more than aware of the value Wind Fury Totem brings to the table and how close it is to the hearts of players. However, its vanilla implementation was too big of a percentage of the shaman's overall output, pushing their personal performance down, while it also made other temporary weapon enchants like sharpening stones or rogue poisons irrelevant. That's why we decided to redesign these two totems to instead apply the effects in an area similar to the totems like Grace of Air and lower their power since they will no longer be mutually exclusive with other temporary weapon enchant. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So that bringing down the power of Wind Fury Totem and allowing, of course, your other enchants, weapon enchants. So in the combination, if they kept the power that's that high, that would be too much. So yeah. Totemic Slam, a new Tauren Shaman racial. All right, that's very close to the hearts of Warcraft 3 players, and even from the World of Warcraft cinematic, the Shaman is the Tauren. I don't know if he's a shaman, but the Tauren is running around with those big totems, which is actually a weapon you can get here on Turtle WoW as well. So I know they could get it in and can get it in Season of Disaster. I have it on my Shaman there, but they had it before that here on Turtle WoW. Slam your target with your ancestral totem, causing damage equal to 10% of your attack power, and concuss your target, reducing their attack and casting speed by 25% for 8 seconds, 1 minute cooldown, 5% mana cost. Okay, again, I'm not really sure of this part here. I think they're leaning into attack speed with a lot of their things. They did it with the Hunter as well, slowing attack speed. I think I see it's quite useful for PvE raid encounters, especially on a boss. It's a lot of damage that you mitigate, but in a PvP scenario, it's weak. Let's read the developer comment. This new racial has been added, as Spirit Link will now be the last capstone talent of the Restoration talent tree. This ability should retroactively replace your Spirit Link. Weapon imbues such as Flame Tongue, Frostbrand, and Rockbiter now last for 1 hour instead of 5 minutes. Oh, that's a nice quality of life change. They did this in Season of Disaster as well. Spirit Wolves summoned by Feral Spirit no longer scales with attack power. Interesting. So I think in my original video where I go over what has changed on Turtle WoW with Shaman, I feel like back then they didn't do a lot of damage. Maybe that was changed and they now do a lot of damage since they require a nerf. So hopefully it's not too big of a nerf. I haven't tested this one yet, but I hope it's not too much. This is the old video where I go over how much damage it is. It's not much damage, especially not compared to the wolves they get in a Season of Disaster. New ability, Earthshaker Slam. Slams your target with your shield, taunting it. Has no effect if the target is already attacking you. 5-yard range, 10-second cooldown, 3% mana cost, requires a shield. And now, just like the Paladins, the Shamans are getting a separate ability, dedicated taunt ability, which is nice. Earthshock now has a 1.5 increased threat modifier instead of 2, so they're nerfing the amount of threat or lowering the amount of threat you do from Earthshock. And this is probably because you actually want to use Earthshock a lot in PvE, mainly to interrupt bosses and other mobs, and if you pull aggro from doing that, it's gonna feel bad. That's why in, I think it was TBC, they moved the threat modifier completely away from Earthshock and actually moved it over to Frostshock instead. So Earthshock has the interrupt and Frostshock has the slow plus the extra threat, right? So actually you're not doing both. And then in Ref they gave you, isn't it in Ref that they gave you a separate shock that would be that had the interrupt ability on it, I think. Earthshield now has new ranks that can be acquired at lower levels. Okay, interesting. So you're getting Earthshock now while leveling and not just at level 60. The current version is now max rank. The spellcast pushback reduction is the same for all ranks, being 30%. And that is actually really strong in PvP. Rank 1, so and so much mana, so and so much healing on hit, and it probably still scales with your healing power, I would think. Water Shields now has new ranks and can also be acquired at lower levels. The current version of the rank is the max rank. Now we have 26. Earth Shield is level 40. 26 is the earliest for your Mana Shield or Water Shield, which is absolutely amazing for Shaman Sustain. Chain Heal's baseline cast time duration has been increased from 2.5 seconds to 3 seconds. Okay, so they're nerfing Chain Heal, making it a longer cast. Developer comment, this change aims to steer Restoration's Shamans deeper into their respective talent tree, as the new improved Chain Heal talent reduces the cast time of Chain Heal by 1 second when fully talented. Okay. So actually, you are getting, if you go deep into Resto, you're getting a faster chain heal than you've ever had before. Totemic Recall now will now be available at level 10 and will correctly refund the mana cost of every totem. Additionally, the refunded amount is now displayed in the combat log. Okay, great. Wind Fury weapon. Oh, interesting. Cooldown between procs increased from 3 seconds to 6 seconds. Holy shit, they're nerfing Wind Fury. And the proc chance has been reduced. Right. So now you're going to be using another weapon imbue, I'm guessing. Developer comment. Although this might seem like a harsh nerf to Wind Fury weapon's effect, it proved to be a major outlier during testing sessions, where enhancement performed as an overwhelmingly strong outlier in its individual performance by pulling ahead of every single DPS spec in the game by several hundreds of damage per second. Okay, they've added something else then. So that's going to be interesting to see. Within the specializations rotation, it also completely outshined every other performance tool in the enhancement in the Shaman's toolkit, often making up for 2/3 of the damage dealt by the spec, as if enhancement now was solely the Wind Fury specialization and every other spell existed alongside it. As a team, we did not want to revert or diminish the scaling on shock and shield spells in order to keep the Shaman in check. No, that would also be, I agree. That shouldn't be. I can see how Wind Fury would make up a lot of your damage, but I just think that reducing the proc chance, I'm gonna have to see what else they've done. But just only considering this in a vanilla perspective, like reducing the proc chance for PvP already. There was like in PvP, you would run around and once in a blue moon, you'll get a Wind Fury proc. And now that's going to be once in a solar eclipse. So I think that the other way of nerfing this would be, I think that maybe this is fine, but instead of reducing the chance, increase the chance actually to maybe 33%, but then nerf the damage from it, right? So it's not this spiky damage. Maybe nerf it just a little bit. It has some attack power added onto it. If you nerf that a little bit, it doesn't hit so hard. But I would like to see a lot of Wind Fury procs, so it's a little bit more consistent instead of this wandering around in PvP and then one time every battleground you get to one-shot somebody. It's not fun for the receiving end of that one-shot, and it's also not really fun for the Shaman because, okay, great, you one-shotted one guy in one battleground, and now you have to wait till the next battleground to do the same because they are so far in between these one-shots. So I think people have a romantic idea of Enhancement Shaman, but in reality, Wind Fury Enhancement Shaman in vanilla is piss poor, the worst PvP class of all of them. So gonna be interesting to see what they do. As a team, we didn't want to. Yes, mostly because our aim with these changes is to bring the feel of progression to a specialization which has been desperately asking for it since its inception, and it did not seem right to have these new and enjoyable tools pay for the imbue's overwhelming and polarizing performance. I can absolutely agree with this. I just think that it's the wrong way of nerfing Wind Fury weapon. I would much rather see a higher chance for more consistency, but in a low amount of damage. Maybe make it one extra attack instead of two extra attacks, or nerf the attack power bonus on it. Something like that. I hope they're giving the Shamans the option of being a dual wielder or a two-hander, because I like having, again, options, lots and lots of options. And actually, now that I come to think about it, what if they leaned into the spell hand type of shaman? So you have your elemental, which is your classical caster. Then you have your enhancement, which is focusing on more of the physical part of it, where you use Wind Fury as your main imbue. And then maybe if it was leaning into some other sort of like spell hands build, maybe that would be a idea of bringing on board these other imbues, making them interesting and viable by making it more as a spell power focused enhancement build, right? So that could be an idea for them to make other imbues viable, but in a different way. So it's not just the same type of enhancement shaman. But this is elemental we're going into first. We're generally satisfied with where elemental and Shaman was after the first class changes, so it is only receiving minor improvements. Adjustments to this specialization aims to smooth out the random burst spikes, both for players and creature combat, meaning PvP and PvE, taking care of their threat issues. Yes, that sounds good. Bump up their mana sustain and encourage the use of Flame Shock and Searing Totem into the rotation. So that's the thing. That is what an elemental can. That is burst spikes. That is on demand. It's not random. It's on demand. Burst spike every 3 minutes with this talent here. which at endgame you probably wouldn't even pick, but then you'd go for all nature swiftness. Elemental Devastation now increase your chance to hit melee attacks and spells by 3%. Okay, that's nice. Some extra hit for spells is sorely needed for shamans for sure. And your melee critical strikes increase your chance to hit with spells by an additional 9%. 15 seconds. Previous functionality removed. Okay, so now it's made to hit instead of crit, as I remember it, right? It was crits before. Yeah, it was crits. It was spells that increased your melee crit. Now it's melee crits that increase your spell hit and also passive amount of hit on both melee and spells, which is again a lot more useful for PvE. Developer comment. This hybrid talent was moved to the second row. That's nice. And repurposed to address both elemental and enhancement spell hit problems. Born of Nature's guidance, this is a prime example of the aforementioned talent compression while maintaining a focus on the talent's utility for enhancement. We felt that originally having to spend a substantial amount of talent points to earn spell and melee hit was detrimental to a class with so much that's another English word I can't pronounce, access to playstyles, forcing it to thinly spread across the board. We are confident this change allows for more efficient and smoother gameplay performance for both elemental and enhancement. Yeah, you could this wasn't hit before. Maybe it was on Turtle WoW, but it's always been crit. So usually for PvP, you would go, if you wanted to do a stupid spec, which was the enhancement, which is really bad, you would go for full enhancement, and then you'd go for PvP, you'd go for elemental devastation. For PvE, you would actually want an Nature's guidance with the extra hit chance, and you wouldn't be able to do both. So that would have had to be a choice you made. Now it seems like you'll be able to do both, I guess. No, there's no hit in here anymore, apparently. They just straight out removed the Nature's guidance and embedded it into this one. So that's, I guess that's nice. If they stick with two-handed, which it looks like they're sticking with a two-handed enhancement build, then again, you won't be needing more than 9 hit chance. And now actually 8 hit chance because they changed the need for hit a little bit. Okay. Elemental focus, mana cost reduction increased from 40 to 60%. That's this one. Okay, that's a lot. And look at this. It works on melee attacks as well. Yeah, still 2 very weak talents. Not a lot of options for row 3. It's always been like you would probably go for this in almost every case. This is just I wish this to be made interesting in some way. After landing a critical strike with 5 frost nature damage spell or melee attack, you enter clear casting state. So this you absolutely need to go for as enhancement as well, for sure, no matter what. Because this is gonna reduce the cost of your shock spells by a lot. Developer comment, clear casting is a big part of Shaman's resource management, and we felt that as a talent it was incapable of properly addressing the class mana issues across the board, prompting us to increase its effectiveness. We see clear casting as a good example of a class indirectly increasing its mana pool as it acquires better gear, specifically critical strike chance, and wanted to push this concept further through this change. And I actually like that they put it all into one talent, because in TBC they just added it here and it wasn't that interesting. Either you go for this if you're enhancement, or you went for this one if you were elemental, and this here is embedded it into one. I think actually makes for more options, and it also makes it more interesting, like spec-wise. You have to sacrifice something. You don't get it by default. You have to go into elemental if you want this, which means that you are getting less into resto. Call of Flame now also increased the damage, fire damage by 15%. But that's your totems, and it's gonna be your flame shock. That's this one. Call of Flame, these two are new. Right. Fire damage spells. Okay. New talent, Flame Guidance, 5th row capstone, increased the range of Searing Totem and Flame Shock spells by 10 yards. That's a lot. And casting your Flame Shock spell will now cause your Searing Totem to focus that target. That's not that interesting. So what? I like the range on your Flame Shock, but your Flame Shock is not really your go-to in any way for PvP. So that's not going to be incredible. This is not going to be that impactful for PvP. I would love to have seen something that also took PvP into consideration. This, where did the arrow go? The arrow disappears. They did something here, probably coming next. Elemental Fury has been replaced by Electrify. Your Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning spells charge you with electricity, increasing your nature damage dealt by 2% and the critical strike damage bonus of your offensive spells by 20%. That's 20 second stacks 5 times. So that's just a straight up nerf A massive nerf. What? So 10% more nature damage. That part is a little bit of a buff, right? But this part here, so there's no burst anymore. You're not gonna one-shot anyone anymore. Developer comment: replace Elemental Fury with a stacking nature damage and critical damage increase. Is it critical damage increase? Increasing nature damage dealt? No. This is just replacing the critical damage from Elemental Fury, which is just straight up 100%, not only for Elemental, but also for enhancement. But now it's not really worth to go all the way down here for enhancement, to go with a shock build, because you won't be building any Elemental Fury or Electrify now. You won't be building any Electrify from your shock spells. It's only going to be your lightning spells that does that. But it's also a massive nerf to your shock spells, it seems. Okay. Replace the elemental stacking nature damage and critical damage increase. While the upfront critical damage bonus is momentarily lost at the start of an encounter. Thinking about PvE again, revised elemental mastery will carve its place into any elemental shaman's rotation by quickly bringing them up to the old elemental fury. Okay, so elemental mastery has something added. Critical damage levels while making it worth it to do so through the stacking nature damage bonus. And here we have elemental mastery now also gives you 2 stacks of electrify buff. So this is a massive nerf. As far as I can read, it's just a massive nerf for elemental. I would go as far as to say now elemental probably isn't worth it anymore for PvP, because there's one way you can go about it. There's one way you can go about all of this, which is probably going to be the way that they are going to be going about it, which is not the way that the Turtle WoW team predicted this would happen, I think. But basically what you're going to be doing, I think, let me just check this. Okay, so here we are on my Shaman. We'll go Torta. So basically what I predict is going to happen is this. This is how you're going to stack it. You're just going to do 4 of these. 1, really fast, rank 1, lightning bolt. And once you have your stacks, then you do your regular lightning bolt. Or maybe just 3 fast ones. And then you pop your Elemental Fury, and then you can burst once every 3 minutes. Yeah. Not really sure that I like that. I can see why this would be okay for PvE if it's because the amount of damage that the Shaman has in PvE is too strong, and you need to nerf it in a way so it ramps up. It's not that powerful at the beginning, but it ramps up over time. But the implication of this in PvP, I think, is just making elemental into a gimmicky class in a way, because now it feels like, okay, and you only get 2 stacks of electrify buff on your elemental mastery, meaning you're gonna have to use a lot of chain or lightning bolts. And at what point do you, in any circumstance, just allow an elemental shaman in a BG to sit there and shoot out lightning bolts? That never happens. Usually, if the shaman can get a lightning bolt and a chain lightning off, then he's lucky. In a highly competitive battleground, you're never gonna let a shaman sit there and shoot out lightning bolts and chain lightnings at people. So it's a big nerf. That's a really big nerf. Let's just do the talents here and see what we should pick. Not much added, not much interesting. It's still pretty cookie cutter with what you want to spec into, right? I would come up with another solution on how to solve the problem, if it is a problem, with the shaman's burstiness. Because here's the thing, like, it's very, very easy to stop an elemental shaman. The biggest weakness of an elemental shaman is interruption and spell lockdown, like being silenced, for instance. Because everything in the shaman's toolkit is spell damage. Everything is not spell damage, I mean nature school. Everything is a nature school. So if a shaman gets silenced by a mage with improved silence, then he's locked out of all his spells for 10 seconds. And has always been the biggest weakness for elemental shaman, is getting locked down, not being able to cast your spells. And that's why it's so tough for an elemental shaman in PvP to fight a mage. And I don't really see that hasn't really been addressed in any way. And you're just sitting there for 10 seconds like a target dummy, not being able to do anything. And that's the biggest problem with elemental in PvP, is just getting locked down completely. So in that sense, he's a very weak caster. He doesn't have any stuns. He doesn't have any roots. He has a lot of slows, ton of slows. He has a ton of interruption. If you count grounding totem into that. And fights against mages are pretty interesting as an elemental shaman, but usually if the mage or anyone for that matter can hit a shaman with a silence, it feels like you have no comeback on that. There's absolutely nothing you can do. And I wish that would be addressed somehow in the talent tree. Reduced the time you are silenced as a shaman by 50% or something, because getting locked down for 10 seconds isn't even fun anymore. There's nothing you can do. There's no playback for that at all. So I would love to have seen that been added. I think they added that in TBC as well. Let me just check. TBC calculator. This is the one. Focused mind. Reduce the duration of silence and interrupts. So that's going to help the shaman a lot with silences. Maybe it's because the earth shield that they get it as a baseline ability. It's so powerful that it alone can keep the shaman alive against these massive silence effects or interrupt effects and the effect that it has on the elemental shaman. But now nerfing the amount of damage that they do by a lot, I can see this is really not a problem in PvE, because you'll just be shooting your 5 level rank 1 lightning bolts. It's probably not what they thought that it would come down to, but I don't see anything about you having to use your highest rank lightning bolt for this to count. So you'll just be using rank 1 really quick, and then you have your stacks. But in PvP, that's going to be only thing that an elemental shaman can do in PvP is be fucking bursty. You don't want to allow elemental shaman to stand in the background and just shoot chain lightning bolts at the face of your allies. You want to take care of that as fast as possible, which is quite easy to take care of an elemental shaman, because he doesn't really have any escape tools. He doesn't really have anything to stun or lock you down, unless they've changed that in some other talent thing. But we already went over all the baseline stuff, and we've went over all the elementals. So I don't think there's coming anything that's going to help the elemental shaman in that regard. So I might be wrong, but I kind of hope they change this somehow. But it's also going to feel bad. Okay, so if I want to do a earth shock that actually does a significant amount of damage, I need to shoot 5 lightning bolts off before I can do an earth shock that does damage. I know, okay, so earth shock is going to scale a little bit with attack power. They wrote about that before, but you're not going to have attack power as an elemental shaman. You're going to go heavy into spell power. Yeah, that's I think that's going to be a big nerf for elemental shaman in PvP. But let's move on to enhancement. This specialization suffered from over-reliance on their strong supporting capabilities, weak personal performance, and lack of enjoyable rotation, resulting in enhancement shamans were either taken solely for their strong Wind Fury totem, or restoration shamans were forced to specialize deep into enhancement to prove their teammates with Bloodlust. That's because they added Bloodlust in the previous patch for shamans, but I think it was a 5-minute cooldown, so it's kind of weird. That's why both of these powerful support tools were changed to open up the possibility of shamans to focus more on their personal performance instead of just being a support for others. I like that. The enhancement tank builds also got some new tools to help them properly fulfill a tank role in leveling and early endgame content. Rank 7 Earthshock and rank 4 Frostshock now scale with your attack power, increasing damage by an amount equal to 10% of your attack power. So that's fine for enhancement. That's good for enhancement. They're getting what the elemental has lost. The base damage values has been reduced by 25 due to the base attack power values, meaning these ranks should do the same damage as before if you do not have anything increasing your attack power. The spell description of these ranks now indicate that the spell benefits from attack power. Okay, that's fine. So it's still going to be a lot more than 25. Once you get some high-end gear, you're going to be a lot more than just 25 damage. So this is just the baseline. I'm guessing if you just hit level 60 without any gear, then it would be equal. But as soon as you start acquiring gear, then the attack power values would absolutely outshine the nerf. So that's nice. There's some scaling to that for enhancement. Rank 5 and rank 6 of Flame Shock now also scale with attack power, increasing initial damage by an amount equal to 6% of attack power, and each tick of damage over time damage by an amount equal to 1.5% of your attack power, equaling 6% with your tick. So that's 12% total increase. Okay. The base initial damage is reduced by 16, and the base damage of each tick over time is reduced by 4. I mean, these range should do the same amount of damage as before if you do not have anything increasing your attack power. The spell description of these ranks now indicate that spell benefits from attack power. So when they're saying should be the same, is because you have, of course, some baseline attack attack power. So this is probably without accounting for any gear at all. So if you take all the gear off of your Shaman, it's just completely naked, and then you use your Flame Shock, it should be the same as it is before. But now as soon as you equip some spell, not spell power, but yes, also spell power, but especially attack power gear as well, now it starts increasing your shock damage. Fire Shock, what the fuck is that? It's probably a typo. That's Flame Shock, Earth Shock, Frost Shock. Now enable your auto attacks. That's nice. That's having to do a macro on every, I have a macro on every single of my shocks. So it actually starts your auto attacks once you use your shock spells. So that's nice to not need that anymore. Rock Biter weapon now increase all threat you generate by 30% instead of generating a flat amount of threat per attack. Okay, so it's with a percentage now. Developer comment: these two changes above allows damage dealing enhancement shamans to include this spell in their rotation while not diminishing their tanking potential when needed. Okay. Ancestral knowledge now increase all your base stats by 10% instead of increasing your maximum mana. That seems a lot more impactful. The stats granted by this talent do not scale with any of your gear as they're only your base stats. Oh, I'm sorry to see that. Why? Why not just give the Shaman a Blessing of Kings? Maybe that's too overpowered, but I'd say just a 10% increase. Like the Paladin has so much that increases his strength and has so much that it's this one increased the total strength. Oh, that's not the right calculator. This one is. So this one increased the total strength by 10. This one increased the total strength by 20. And this one increased it by another 10. That's 40% more strength. And this is just all stats. I know it's a blessing and stuff like that. I know shamans have their totems, but you know, you're not gonna put down your totem before you start smacking people in PvP, and especially in usually I don't use at least my what's it called, strength of earth totem, and usually you save your globals for your grounding totem, for your searing totem, for your fire nova totem, your earthbind totem. Those are your utility totems, and only in PvE do you ever really consider using strength of earth totem and race of air totem and wind fury totem. Those are for PvE scenarios. So this would actually free up the necessity to put down constant putting down totems to benefit from those in PvP, because you rarely have time for that. And as soon as you put them down, okay, then what? Then you move out of the range of those. So it's not really like a buff, like a weak buff. As totems are, I've never really liked totems actually. I love the Shaman. I love the lightning spitter and chain lightning out his ass and stuff like that, but I don't like totems. Yeah, those were weird. Developer comment: the stats granted by this talent do not scale with any. Okay, I already read that. Sorry. Shield specialization: the amount of damage blocked is increased from 25% to 30% to be in line with similar talents, except that similar talents do more than just increase. Where are we? They do more than just increase the block amount. Some give mana back. Now we have, as a Shaman, you have your water totem, so that's going to make up for this. But at least maybe give the Shaman also some extra block chance on it. I know they already have some. But that's this one, 5% block chance, and this one to all base stats, 10%. So it's better than before. Guardian totem merged into enhancing totems. This is the one that's been moved down a little bit, but these two have been merged into one. And you get some threat here. Dynamic alignment. Instantly strike your target, causing 60% weapon damage and 20% weapon damage and nature damage. This strike also triggers an empowered version of your active shield. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, this one's also been changed. Increase the number of charges of your shield spells by 6, but increase the cooldown between activation. But this is actually great for PvP, and just in general seems like it's pretty strong. Shamans are finally getting another strike ability, and that actually scales with both spell damage and I think, well, let's read the words before. We haven't gotten this far yet. This one was merged into 2, so increased the effect of your strength of earth and grace of air by 15 and reduce the cooldown of your grounding. Okay, and your stone skin totem damage reduction is increased by 30. Additionally, it increased your block amount by 30. This actually, I think, was a lot of the, along with totemic alignment, and this one was probably a lot of the stuff that I was actually talking about in my video here. Nice for elemental, but it also has a ton of stats for enhancement, so it's a mix of both. And as soon as you're at range, you're on a... So this can be cast on any party member, or it can be cast on yourself. But it has... So I was talking about adding some threat to the Shaman or a warrior will, but also the shields are here. Suggestions I was having: improve frost shock, give you a chance to taunt. Now they're getting a taunt, separate taunt that doesn't affect your shocks, which is much better actually. Improve stone skin totem, also give you increased defense and block chance, because the Shaman, compared to any other tanking class, doesn't actually have anything that increases his defense, right? So if you take a look at for instance, Paladin and Warrior, they have anticipation. That's something that increases defense skill. Shaman unless they change that, and I don't. Doesn't really have anything that increases defense, which means you're still, as a shaman, you're gonna have a really hard time getting crit immune. But that was why I suggested defense and some extra block chance, because that's also counts towards you becoming crit immune. So this is why I made it this way. The amount of blocked damage is only good when you're fighting multiple mobs. But it's only good when you're fighting multiple mobs. Damage reduction is also nice, but as again, Stoneskin Totem isn't really taken into a raid environment and placed against a boss, because he's hitting so hard that the amount that you reduce from your Stoneskin Totem, that's not why it's good. It's not a totem that you're using in that scenario. And also that's the same with the block amount. Not really interesting. What Shaman needs is block chance and defense, increased defense, to get to the point where it's easier to become crit immune. But anyway, I like that they put all of this into one talent. I have to get credit where credit's due, because in the original one, having this spread out over several talents and then not even being as strong as it is in here seems, maybe Stoneskin Totem will become a little bit relevant, but it's only damage reduction it only increases its own damage reduction. And it's not a percentage, it's a flat value, unless they also changed that, but I don't think they did. This is a great talent. That's a lot of extra armor, and it's also a lot of dodge chance. But I don't think, dodge chance, it counts towards avoidance cap, I think, but it's not going to help you against crits. Something that would lower the chance of being critically struck would also work in the same way as, I think, as defense skill. That's why you need a specific amount of defense. So a talent that would, right here, that could help with defense. Why not just add a 5-point or a 3-point talent that would help with the defense, just like the Paladin's Anticipation? That would be great. New talent, Totemic Alignment. You gain, that's the one that gains threat. I also talked about this one in my video. I was talking about adding more talents here that would help tank. This is here an example of how it could work, like improved totems. Basically, I just want your fire totems to direct all the threat they do back to the shaman. Because usually what happens in PvE, if you place down your Fire Nova totem, Fire Nova totem says right here it generates, apparently it doesn't say that, but at least you can reduce the threat here. But Fire Nova totem generates a shit ton of threat. So if I go here and I place my fire totem, he should try to destroy that. I don't know why he didn't actually. Maybe they changed some things. But usually in classic Blizzard's classic, if you place a Fire Nova totem, the mobs instantly turn towards that and kill the Fire Nova totem before you can do anything about it. And this would just direct all that threat back to you. So that it does help a little bit. At least it's a form of, it's a sort of a mass taunt, but not taunting, not actually taunting, just generating threat. But let's read on. This threat is further increased by all threat increasing factors such as rock biter weapon. Okay, so it helps a little bit. It's a 30% more because that's a rock biter weapon. So that what they mean by increasing the generation is not just on the rock biter's weapon hits, like the imbue. If you imbue the weapon and you hit somebody, you increase the threat in that way. Now it's actually a percentage of all your attacks, basically, as I'm understanding it. While before it was just only auto attacking with rock biter that generated the threat. Now it's just a 30% increase as soon as you imbue yourself. And I think that's the same in Season of Discovery. They're drawing some inspiration. Maybe it did, or maybe not. It's just what was in the cards since, original vanilla, which is where both the Blizzard team and the Turtle team are drawing their inspirations from. Improved Lightning Shield has been replaced by Stable Shields. Increase the number of charges with your shield spells and the cooldown between activation. Yes, we read that one, and this is the follow-up talent. This was this one, and the follow-up talent, Lightning Strike. Lightning Strike is a capstone talent. Instantly strike a target, causing 60% physical weapon damage and 20% weapon damage as nature damage. This strike also triggers an empowered version of your active shield, consuming 1 charge. 10-second cooldown. Okay. Base mana cost. Empowered means that the shield expense by lightning strike benefit from your attack power. The amount scaling as follows. So lightning shield, every 4 attack power gets 1 extra damage, but only when it's affected by lightning strike. So the lightning strike empowers a charge on your lightning shield, which then scales with attack power. So that's gonna be added to so that's some spell damage that's going to be added to your lightning strike, which is nice. That means that the 60% weapon damage isn't that bad, because a lot of the physical damage that you're getting is added to the lightning shield. But this also makes sure that Elemental isn't abusing this, because they don't really want attack power, they want spell power, which is also probably gonna, I don't know actually if it's gonna increase your lightning shield. Originally honestly, it's not. I don't think there's any scaling coefficient in vanilla for Lightning Shield, but maybe there is in here, which will make up for some of the damage loss with Elemental. Because Lightning Shield for enhancement is going to be really great, but for Elemental it's probably not if Lightning Shield does not scale with spell power. Even though you can get this while being full Elemental, you can still go get this. It's still not going to be as much as if you were geared for enhancement, basically, because the attack power is the only scaling coefficient on the Lightning Shield. The Water Shield gives some extra mana, and the Earth Shield also gives some extra health, but the big part is this one, Lightning Shield. With these two talents, we set out to tackle two of enhancement's issues, namely its inability to interact with its elemental shields in group content and the lack of another skill capable of taking advantage of the specialization's melee-orientated stack growth. With both of these talents combined, we are confident Shamans can now take full control of the elemental shields while being rewarded for their creative and effective utilization as both a damage tool and a resource management tool, all the while having a second way of expressing their strength as a melee specialization. That is very true. It's really interesting that now you can, in a PvE scenario, actually trigger your lightning shield, because you can't unless you're getting hit, right? So this makes a lot more sense than it does in original vanilla, because you don't really in a raid environment care about your shields because you're not going to proc them anyway, because you don't want to be hit anyway. So if you are being hit, then something's going wrong. But now you have a way of proccing it, and it's also making it interesting because you can gain mana from a mana shield, you can gain some health if you're low on health, but especially the mana part and the damage part are interesting because that's going to help you with sustain in PvE. It's also going to be beneficial for PvP, of course, because that's some on-demand damage plus the damage you get from Lightning Strike. And on a two-handed, that's always going to be better. On a one-handed, that's going to be a little bit less damage, but it's still going to have this effect attached to it. So it's making something really interesting to go for in the enhancement tree, which would say you want to go for an elemental build. It's not the one. This is the one. Could probably skip this one. Going like this, getting capstone, and then the choice. Okay, you can actually get title mastery earlier now. Interesting. Now you would probably still go for this. Maybe this actually, but I haven't done the math on this. If it actually worth it, the investment. This would have been nice if this was like in ref. In ref, it also does. It's just overall crit chance. It's not only on your melee attacks, it's also on your spells. So it's just a total of 5% crit to everything. But now you can get your Ghost Wolf. I hope they make this instant to give the Shaman some help with the mobility. Because even in TPC, this got instant, which was such a nice quality of life thing. So you can go for this, and can you still go for... Actually, you can almost get all the points you need. Okay, so that's going to make up for some of the downsides of Electrify, I think. Is it going to be enough? No, I don't think so. But now you have some options once a warrior charges you and interrupts you on your spell casts. Still have your shock spells, though they are weaker. Your shock spells are a lot weaker because when they crit now, it's not going to crit so much. But then at least you can slap them with a one-hander and your shield while also having your earth shield and or a lightning shield on, which can trigger from this one with some increased damage, but sadly not increased damage, not that much increased damage for your elemental shamans. Again, because it was only scaling with attack power, not spell power, it seems. So anyway, very interesting for enhancement shamans. They're getting some love. I like to see it. That's probably going to be the new PvP build. It's going to be enhancement, since it seems like they're nerfing elemental and buffing enhancement. New talent, Calming Winds, row 3, reduce the threat generated by physical attacks, weapon imbue effects, and your Lightning Strike and Storm Strike ability by 15%. 15%. That is not much. Where is that? That's the one here, yeah. Reduce the threat generated by physical attacks. 15%. Usually these talents are around 30%. 15% is not much. This is also only 15%. I see some discrepancy between the amount of threat reduction from other classes and the amount of threat reduction from you get from talents for the Shaman. Ancestral Guardian now requires 3 points instead of 5 points, now grants 15% increased armor value from items instead of 10, and dodge chance increased from 5 to 6. So that's going to be a really, really, really strong talent now. This one here, 15% more armor is a lot. 6% more damage is also not something you should sleep on for PvP. It's really strong. Spirit armor requires 2 points instead of 3 points. That's the shield one here. Increase the armor of your shield. That's also pretty good, especially for tanking. Enhancing totems moved from 3rd row to the 5th row, and now does the following: increase the effect of your strength of earth and grace of air. Yes, we read through that one. That's the one where I want to see some defense and maybe some, or it could be reduced chance of being critically hit That's gonna help a lot with tanking, especially in raids, right? Not so much in dungeons, doesn't really matter in dungeons. Dungeon tanking is fine, but for raids and boss encounters, there's a long way to go for a shaman to become crit immune. Stormstrike now only has 1 rank. Its cooldown reduced to from 12 to 8 seconds. Okay, that's really nice. Now we really have something to press. Holy shit, they're giving enhancement really some incredibly nice buffs, because in original vanilla, Stormstrike is on I want to say 30-second cooldown. No, 20-second cooldown. So going to a 12-second and now going to an 8-second cooldown. That's really, really nice. But then again, nerfing Wind Fury is not so nice. Mana cost is reduced from 12% to 7% of base mana, now grants a buff that increased the damage of the next 2 sources. So instead of a debuff, it's now a buff on you. Deal increased 20% instead of applying a magic debuff. Yeah, that is. Increase the damage of the next 2 sources of nature damage to the target by 20% addition in hit 2. You now need a weapon equipped to use this ability. Yes, of course. I would love to have seen not just nature damage, but maybe just elemental damage, right? That means fire, frost, and nature. So elemental damage and not just nature damage, because sometimes you want to hit them with a flame shock, or sometimes you want to hit them with a frost shock to slow them instead. That would have been extra nice, but okay, we'll take this. Developer comment: this change to the nature damage functionality allows enhancement to not use their damage potential to other classes' abilities and nature damage dealt by weaker effects such as item effects. Yes. Now they just need to do the same with the rogue's combo points. Put them on the rogue instead of the target. Okay. Elemental weapons now does the following. Imbue your weapon gives you a special benefit based on the imbue. Flame tongue increase the damage done of your fire totems and spells by 15, but the only fire spell you have is flame shock. Increase the damage on your fire totem. Oh, and spells, so it's all spells. Oh, okay, I get it. So increase damage of all your spells. So you actually want to go for this instead of elemental mastery. Is that what they're trying to say? You want to go for this one instead. Increase damage done of your spells, fire tools and spells. 15% more on your lightning bolts. But you can't get 3 points into this anyway, so you're only going to get 5 then. But you can get Stormstrike if you skip this one. That's 20% more on your damage, on your nature damage spells. And it's not hard to weave in a Stormstrike between some chain lightning bolts for the 20 extra damage. Especially now that it's applied on you and not on the debuff on the target. Rockbiter. Reduce your damage taking, so it's really going heavy into the tanking. Still need the defense, guys. We still need that crit immunity, but this is going to help for sure. Frostbrand increased. It just needs to say 6% reduced chance of being critically hit, or 4% or 3%. Just help us a little bit becoming crit immune. Frostbrand increased the damage to proc the effect by 25% and becomes guaranteed to critically hit if the target is afflicted by frost shock. So this is your new Wind Fury. You're going to use Frostbrand instead of Wind Fury weapon. Wind Fury, if one of the bonus attacks of your Wind Fury weapon doesn't land, your attack speed is increased by 30% for your one strike, just 1 strike. This is not much. This is very uninteresting. Your new go-to is going to be Frost Trap, and you want to keep Frost Shock on your target at all times for this to be a guaranteed crit. I don't know what the proc chance is already, but I think it's actually quite low, because once I use Frostbrand, it's usually rarely proc. Like it feels like it's somewhere close to like 15. I want to say 15%. So if we just go with that, because I don't know what the proc chance is, but then it's a lot increased, right? Maybe 20%. This is at least the double amount of increase. If I have to guess, I think this is doubling the proc chance at least, and then guaranteed to critically hit. Plus the effect of Frostbrand is also slowing the target. I don't know if they stack with Frost Shock. They probably don't, but that's very interesting. Developer comment: through this talent we had the opportunity to work on the role of each of the shaman's imbues and make them focus on their niches more. Flame Tongue and Frostbrand weapon imbues have been rendered capable of interacting with their corresponding shock. Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's only fire spells, it seems, because corresponding shock. And when they say it like that, then I start to think they mean fire totems and fire spells, not just spells. Slotting respectively into a sustained or burst melee spellcaster capable of fighting from both afar and close up. There's really not much in the enhancement tree to help him fighting from afar. Saying, okay, fighting from afar then you would have to allow the elemental shaman to shoot his lightning bolts and chain lightning, but that's not really gonna happen unless you have lightning mastery to reduce the cast time. So if you got rid of this, then yes. If not, then no. Rockbiter weapon allows the shaman to build that specialize into taking blows for the allies to perform this task easier by granting increased survivability. Yes. Wayfarer weapon is left untouched as it falls in line with our concept of it acting as the imbue of choice for a pure melee damage dealing shaman. While turning up the dial on its imbue would have been coherent with the changes applied to the others, we decided to instead have Wayfarer become a more internally consistent by rendering it an inescapable menace for anyone on the receiving end of its effect, reducing the loss of missing a Wayfarer proc while avoiding rendering its power level polarizing when confronted with other class enhancements. I say it's just sad to see that this is the way they're going about it, because I would much rather have it proc more often with less damage. That's going to feel better, I think, than having a proc once the stars align. Because lowering the proc chance was already low. That was fixed in Burning Crusade when they added dual wielding, because now you had two weapons you can proc it from. But now they're just going with the let's keep the proc no, let's keep the damage really, really high, but reduce the proc chance. So it's gonna feel even worse, in my opinion. But then again, you get another strike, and you get your storm strike at 8 seconds, so that's gonna compensate a little bit for this feel bad effect of storm strike, because then every 8 seconds that's another chance of proccing, plus your lightning strike, which is on a 10-second cooldown, so that's another chance of proccing your wind fury. So maybe it's not gonna feel as bad as I'm worried about, but I just like to see the flashy wind coming up from my character. But maybe those two will compensate. We'll have to see. That'll be interesting. All right, but moving on. Weapon mastery now affects all melee skills too. Okay, that's nice. This change allows this sick throw talent to feel much more worthwhile, buffing the damage of storm strike and lightning strike as well. Okay, nice. So 10% more damage to these two on top of the existing effect. Bloodlust. That's gonna be interesting. Now only has one rank and grants 15 melee and casting speed. Can only be cast on yourself. So this makes sure that it's not just a buff for the raid, but it's actually for the shaman. Duration increased from 20 to 30 seconds. Okay. While under the effect, your melee critical strikes, hits increase melee, range, and spell casting speed of all party members by 5%. 30-yard range, 5 seconds. That's not long. 5 seconds. So that's not going to be a constant uptime. Basically, if you are wielding a two-handed weapon, you're likely going to be a very low uptime. Make it 15 seconds, in my opinion, and then you have something that's more worth it in terms of buffing your raid members. And I don't think 5% is going to be too overpowered in any way, shape, or form. That's a very, very low amount. But it doesn't say anything about the cooldown, so hopefully it's not 5-minute cooldown, because that would be just absolutely useless. Developer comment: following the focus on personal contribution of the shaman, Bloodlust was reworked to be a buff for the shaman first and foremost, while the party support component was reworked to depend directly on the shaman's aforementioned personal contribution, as well as its gearing progression, magnifying shaman's individual performance while toning down their reliance on buffing others to indirectly contribute to group performance. So let's take a look at the talents Bloodlust, and we don't see any cooldown in here neither. So it's hopefully it's not let's see here, hopefully it's not because this is 5 minutes and it feels kind of useless. Like, okay, so you get 15% attack speed, a little bit of burst every 5 minutes. It's even weaker than the Troll's Racial on a 5-minute cooldown. Put it on a 30-second cooldown and make it last 30 seconds, so you can actually almost have a full-time uptime of this. I don't think would be unreasonable, especially with the nerfs for Wind Fury. But again, if they say that it does too much damage in PvE, then it's probably just the Enhancement Shaman is probably up there. But it just feels a little bit bad as a capstone talent if it's a 5-minute cooldown. You know, I'd rather go with Nature Swiftness or maybe even Electrify, even though it's been nerfed a lot. So it doesn't really feel like 5 minutes. Having this on a 5-minute cooldown for PvP at least isn't really that big. Just a tiny speed buff. But maybe if they added some CC break to it, like imagine you press this button and then it removes all crowd control effects, or maybe just root effects. That would actually help a lot with this talent to make it viable for PvP, because that's probably one of the Enhancement Shaman's biggest weaknesses, is being kited. It's always been so. But if you add a semi-freedom, maybe a 4 or 5 second freedom to this talent, that will solve many of the Enhancement Shaman's problems when it comes to being kited constantly. That is actually what they did on Season of Disaster. The problem is, in Season of Disaster, they just went overboard with it. It was only a 30-second cooldown and gave you 12 seconds freedom or something like that. But it definitely solved the Enhancement Shaman's problem, but also to a quite overpowered degree, which is in general the problem with Season of Discovery. It started great, but it just went too far. Okay. Well, anyway, moving on to restoration then. We are satisfied with restoration's identity as an effective AoE healer and tank healer, with the power level of the spec being to us adequate. We are of the opinion the tree in class changes 1, so the first set of class changes, has nothing of value beyond nature's swiftness, and found that the mana tide totem was lacking strength that is reserved to a tree's capstone feature. Taking this opportunity for an update to Restoration's tree, we have decided to push for Chain Heal as Restoration's Shaman's identity and have tailored our changes around making the tree speak to it without leaving Healing Wave and Lesser Healing Wave behind. I think the wording here is a little bit cryptic. Maybe it's because I'm retarded, but it could also be worded a bit different, I think. With this new tree, we think we've struck the balance between the two souls of Shaman's healing kit. It's slow cast high value AoE healing and a slow cast high output single target healing. So yes, basically they're just talking about chain heal and healing wave. And since the capstone has been changed, and I think this is already in game, is it not? No. Then maybe Mana Tide Totem is probably gonna be baseline or not. I don't know if they've just removed Mana Tide Totem. Let's check the calculator here. Reduce the mana cost of Mana Spring and increase the effect of healing stream. Okay, this has been reduced to 2 tunnel points. That's a really nice little buff here. And that's Spirit Link. Okay. Tidal Focus. Now reduce the mana cost of your totems by 25%. Okay, so that's been embedded into this talent here, which was previously Totemic Focus, which has been replaced with Tidal Mastery. So this one is the reduced cost of spells and cost of totems, which makes sense if you want to reduce the mana cost of something. Like 5% for spells is almost nothing, but 25% on totems is quite nice. I think they could even buff this one to 10% of your healing spells without it being too strong in any way, shape, or form, just to make the talent feel more impactful. But this is also good. It's better than before for sure. Merged into Tidal Focus, yes. Ancestral Healing moved from 3rd row to 2nd row. That's probably this one, is it not? Ancestral, no. Oh, that's this one, yeah. What was here before? Oh, now I get it. It's because they changed it already in here. These two have swapped places on 3rd row from the first set of changes. This was made to make access for the hit for Enhancement Shaman, so they could actually both get Elemental Devastation and the plus hit they really badly needed. But now it's been removed. The Nature's Guidance has been embedded into Elemental Devastation, and that one has been moved up here. So that's nice. That's good. So that's why it's been moved back to the 3rd row, or moved back to the 2nd row. I'm sorry, it's been moved back to the 2nd row from the 3rd row. Tile Mastery moved from the 4th row to the 2nd row, and that was this one, which was down here, I think, where we have improved Water Shield, which gave the extra crit, which you would always go for as an elemental shaman. Now you have talent points to do different things as elemental. So you got some options here. Can you even go into, you can do like this, right? So you get your strike and you get your 4% crit in here. So that's pretty nice having those options. Or you can just skip all of this and go into some extra nice either tank or survivability. Or you could go with this build here. Something like this would also be strong. Now you're a good hybrid. Getting the Storm Strike off, I think you could probably do this with a one hand and a shield equipped. Plus you have Lightning Strike as an elemental. Maybe then I see why they opted out of, they had to kind of opt out of the Elemental Fury and give you Electrify instead. Because this is a lot of extra damage in melee. So now you're a real like hybrid. You need to fight not just at range, but you need to incorporate some melee enhancement type of fighting into your elemental. But then again, missing your I don't know, maybe this is good. Elemental weapons or lightning mastery, that's a tough one. This pretty much really depends on how you want to play. And going for this one, you might as well maybe go further. I don't know. There's also the option of going for nature's swiftness, but I think it's less appealing now with this electrify. So something like this would also be an option, but probably less so for PvP. Nature guidance merged into the rebrand elemental devastation. Yes, healing focus now requires 2 points instead of 3. That is great because that's the pushback. So that's very nice to have that one reduced by a lot, same as the paladin had. Nature's grace now reduces threat generated by spells, by nature spells instead of just healing. Oh, okay, I didn't even see that actually. So this is gonna be probably a go-to for elemental. Gonna have to go into resto if you want to push hard in raids, or else you're just going to pull threat. But again, I think it's just 15%. Is it really enough? I'm like, can you just maybe buff this a little bit to make it comparable with the paladins 30%, right? But maybe it's not needed, so I don't know. Have to test it first. Restorative totems no longer increase the effect of your mana spring totem and instead reduce its cost by 50%. Developer comment: this mana cost reduction stacks with title focus talents and mana cost reduction. Okay, so that's a 75% mana cost reduction on this totem. So I guess that's good. I don't really see the big impact in mana spring totem. Increased effect by 50%. How much is it in the normal version? Okay, so that is a lot more actually. So is that 25% if fully upgraded? That's 25%. So it's 25% more healing you're getting from your mana tide totem. But is that even much? Probably, of course, pretty comparable to I don't even have water totems. That's just shows how poorly I consider this totem. But in a group setting and in a PvE setting, it's probably just as good as Blessing of Wisdom, if not even actually better. Maybe a Blessing of Wisdom, it likely is a little bit better. I'm not sure. New talent: improved water shield. 3 points allows 6% of your mana regeneration to continue while casting. This is increased by 3% for each of your water shield charges. Interesting. So there's some synergy now with enhancement, stable shields, and water shield, it seems. So going for this one would probably be a good idea, because the more charges you have on your shield, and this increases the charges of your shield spells by 6. So that's 9 charges. 9 charges, 9 times 3. Is that 18 charges or 18% on top of 6%? Some quick maths. That's 24% of your mana regeneration that will continue while casting. That's a lot. Did they even consider this synergy? Because that seems like a lot of extra. That's a lot of extra mana regeneration. Or am I mathing wrong? 3 per globe, 9 globes? No, it seems to check out correct. 24% more mana regeneration to continue while casting. That's a hefty amount of extra mana that you're getting. And if you then go for the semi capstone here, then you go up and whack the mob or the boss once in a while, once every 10 seconds or something. The cooldown is on this one. And then you're going to get some extra mana back, which would scale with your attack power. So it won't be much since you're not really wearing attack power gear while you are healing. And anyway, it wouldn't be much anyway, just a little. Okay, that's very interesting. Some synergy there. The new talent, Undertow row, 5th row, 2 points, your healing wave and lesser healing wave spells have a 50% chance to restore the charge of your water shield. Okay. When at maximum charges, this effect consumes a charge instead. Okay, so that's even extra. Man, that's probably better than lightning strike then, because this is every other healing wave or lesser heal, and this you have to completely interrupt your casting to go up and whack the mob in the face, and it doesn't scale with spell power, so that doesn't really matter anyway. While this one is just from your consecutive single target healing abilities, so that's gonna help you conserve a lot extra mana. So you'll probably just skip this one then and go with this one instead. Developer comment: our aim with Undertow and improved water shield is to encourage the use of healing wave and lesser healing wave by bringing its efficiency up to speed with that of other healers, a department in which the class is severely lacking. These talents are to function as the framework on which Shaman's single target healing is rendered sustainable when used properly instead of restraint. Alright, healing wave moved to row 5 from the second row. Jesus Christ, I can't read anymore. Healing wave moved from row 5 to the third row, now has a 33% chance of triggering from chain heal and also increased the effect of subsequent chain heals. So basically the only thing they added here is chain heal to healing wave, this one. Before it was only healing wave, and that's pretty much it. Now it's also chain heal. And now moving on to, we got the title search first here. 2 points. When you heal a target affected by a healing wave, gain a stack of title search. Title search gives you a 30% chance of your next healing spell to refund 10% of the base mana cost. Stacks up to 3 times, and stacks are consumed when the effect is triggered. Oh, I see. So every time you cast a healing wave, right? And you heal a target affected by a healing wave, gain a stack of... Okay, so it's all healing spells. This counts for all healing spells. So this is only synergistic, this one here. This is only synergistic with healing way, meaning that you need to cast a heal, and there's a 30% chance of that heal giving you 10% of your mana back. If that 30% isn't triggered on the first heal, then it stacks up to 20% of the base mana cost, as far as I'm understanding this. And then if that also isn't triggered, then it's 30% of the mana cost of your next heal. And that keeps going up to 3 stacks, and it stays at 3 stacks until it hits within the 30% and is triggered, and then it removes the stacks, and you start over from 10% and move up to 30% again. That's how I understand it. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Developer comment, one of our marks was to have this new restoration tree embody both sides of Shaman's healing ways. Newfound ability to interact with Chain Heal, we want our Shamans to take full advantage of the options offered by their toolkit while expressing their expertise through an apt and proper use of both it and the healing waves. Title Search is the other pole behind Restoration, new mana efficiency ecosystem. We felt the class was too heavily punished for precasting due to the risk of causing heavy amounts of overheal. These two talents want to ease players into the idea of precasting and using their healing spells much more freely by rewarding them for keeping a steady supply of healing throughout the fight. Yes, lots of getting mana back from your heals. Purification removed. Which was that? Which one? That was this one. There was 10% extra healing from your healing spells. I think that's fine with everything else that we got. New talent, improved Chain Heal. Row 6, 5 points. Reduce the cast time of Chain Heal. That was the one that we were talking about before. This talent is the cherry on top of Restoration's identity as a multi-target healing and its foundation moving forward. Know that this talent specifically is introduced in parallel with the removal of Stormcaller's 5 set bonus. Okay. So basically your tier 2.5 has its I don't know what they got instead then on that one. Was this removed in the previous changes, or is this going to be removed in the next patch? Somebody in the comments tell me, what did they get instead of this? With the philosophy that items should add on top of the class's strength and not be the entire foundation of them. Yeah, I can see where they're coming from with this. It was absolutely unnecessary, and I would say, well, not necessary, but it was probably the strongest set for healing in terms of just raw output and usability of Chain Heal. You really wanted this set bonus to have that effect. And so in terms of that, I kind of agree with this statement. But then again, it's just a matter of having other sets that is just as appealing. But I can see this probably was a little bit too strong. They say Mana Tide Totem removed, so it has apparently not been given to your baseline, but completely removed. But you're getting so much other return on mana and stuff, so I can see that this might not be necessary anymore. But this is also removing a lot of utility in terms of having that for your group. But if you then get that back in terms of restorative totems and mana spin giving you that much more mana back, then maybe it's going to be worth it in the end. Is it going to be comparable to Seal of Wisdom plus Holy Strike for Paladins? I don't know. It seems like this is much less mana return than Holy Strike, and combined with the upgraded Judgment of Wisdom. So we'll have to see. In the end, new talent, Spirit Link, 7th row capstone. You link your target ally and their 2 closest allies within 15 yards together. When linked, targets take damage. 30% is distributed among the other linked allies. Last 30 seconds. Oh, it's a 6-minute cooldown. But just 30 seconds. 6-minute cooldown. Well, then it's not it's not gonna be misused in PvP then, I guess. 6-minute cooldown is a long cooldown. Developer comment, this spell has been on our radar for a while, and its popularity is felt through the community. We're looking at its performance. It had the power level akin to that of a capstone, and given its popularity, we opted to make it so. Restoration Shaman now has a seat at the forefront of damage prevention, and a tool synergizing with its area healing gameplay, which can be used both to reduce incoming damage in preparation of something. In stark contrast with Mana Tide Totem, we are fairly confident this will push enterprising restoration summons to invest into the tree and take full advantage of how it expands upon the specializations gameplay. I can for sure see the use of this talent for a raid environment and PvE environment. This is gonna really help you in a boss encounter where you put this one on the tank and it gets distributed among the other nearby allies. Because then it doesn't really matter that it's a 6-minute cooldown, especially when we're talking about healing. Because for PvE, I don't think healers should be that strong in PvP. Sorry, for PvP, I don't think healers should be that strong. There's been a tendency to want every single spec in terms of damage, the tank and healing to feel equally rewarding to play when it comes to PvP, but I actually disagree with that sentiment quite a bit. I do not think that healing is a thing that should be incredibly powerful in PvP. I would much rather have it be personal sustain and personal skill that determines the outcome rather than how many healers do you have on your team compared to the other team. And healers can quickly make a very big impact in PvP. So not having this being too strong for PvP, I'm actually, now that I think about it, on second thought, I think I'm okay with that. So yeah, let's do some theory crafting if you guys are up for it. Let's go for a enhancement build, just pure damage for PvP. No, I can't do that. So I have to do this. Stone Strike, I need this. Okay, so I can get this. I really want this Ancestral Guardian. I think it's a lot of extra armor and some survivability. But this is a lot of extra damage. But I think I would max this one out first, actually. And then do this. And this one really depends on the cooldown. If this is like more than... Let me think about where's my cap for this. I think 1 minute. If this is more than a 1 minute cooldown, I would not pick this one. I don't think I would. But I think it's okay if it's a 5 minute cooldown if they add some freedom to it or some CC break. And it makes sense. It makes sense thematically for you to power up, like go berserk, go in rage, and break free from any chains that are locking you down, right? You bloodlust, and you break free from something. I definitely think they should add something like this to the last talent in the enhancement tree to really make it both worth it, not only for PvE, but also for PvP. So let's just stick with this for now and see where we go for the rest. We pretty much want, well, we want to get elemental focus, right? Right, guys, that is, I have to get. So this is also on your melee attacks, and it's the next 2 spells, so the next 2 shocks are basically half mana cost. And I got 8 points left now. This is not really that appealing for PvP. This might be appealing, but not really, right? And then there's this reverberation, and this seems pretty powerful, to be honest. So I would probably go with all the points in that one and skip this one, unless I was go for this, but I can't get that. And then the last 3 points in here, because there's not really an enhancement going for this one. No real value in terms of, okay, so it lasts 20 seconds. Maybe if you run around with a rank 1 lightning bolt and you can somehow manage to keep 5 stacks of this one going, which I don't think you can. So the value is just lost in my eyes, where if it was still the same one as it is in vanilla Elemental Fury, then it would have kept its value, and I would definitely gone for that one. But and then I would have skipped the Bloodlust. So yeah, I would much rather have wanted to see Bloodlust increased in power and then reduced maybe something else to make up for the increased power of the capstone. Like, I would much rather have wanted to see a 30% attack speed bonus on a short cooldown, or maybe just a 20-25% on a short cooldown, and then having less power from some of the other talents, just to make it feel like this is really worthwhile, right? And same goes for Electrify. I don't like what they've done with the crit bonus damage, right? Unless that's somehow been embedded into the existing baseline ability of Shamans, but I don't think it has, so it's not on top of something existing. It's just the previous one was always 100%, and now you need to ramp it up by casting 5 lightning bolts. So that's fine for PvE. It's kind of a mess for PvP. Even though you get 2 from this one on a 3-minute cooldown, 2 for the first part is not enough. That should be 5. And even if it was 5 stacks, that would also not be enough because it's on a 3-minute cooldown, right? But we will only have to see. only time will tell. And yeah, I think that's it for now, guys. We already went over a possible elemental build where you went for a lightning mastery and then went down for storm strike, which is probably the version of elemental that would make most sense. Would be a hybrid between elemental and enhancement, going full blown elemental and into resto. I don't really get, I don't really see how it can be that strong in PvP with the changes to electrify. So going deep into resto is not really worth it. Maybe skipping, like if you go as deep as to get into Nature Swiftness, then it might still be quite okay, especially with your improved water shield. If you keep this one going, but you're still gonna need, you really want this water shield to be impactful, you're still gonna want to have your stable shields, and you can't get that and Nature Swiftness while also getting 5 points into Lightning Mastery. So you're a bit stuck with the elemental tree, in my personal opinion. So yeah, I hope they realized this probably is bad for PvP. Maybe give it a 2, like instead of 5 times stack, then a 2 times stack, and then keeping this one as it is, so it always gives you the 2 stacks. But then maybe that's going to break it for PvE, and it's going to be too much damage in PvE. I don't know. All I really think about when I go through this is how balanced are specs for PvP. That's the most important thing to nail down. And then when it comes to PvE, I'm a little bit more okay. I don't really care if I'm a little bit lower on the damage meters. I'm brought to the raid for a different reason than that, right? At least as a hunter, as a rogue, as a paladin, as a shaman, you're brought to raids because of either your utility or a specific role you need to, a job you need to perform. You need to use your tranquilizing shot on a boss for your guild or your raid to even progress. You need the rogues in the suppression room. I talked about this in the previous videos. You need those things to progress through Blackwing Lair. That's the thing that I think vanilla content needs to double down upon, is these niche jobs. Every class has some specific job in a raid environment, and unless you bring that class, you're just not gonna progress past. It has to be a gate. It has to be something you need to gatekeep it in terms of what classes are you bringing, to make sure that everyone feels like they have an important role in a raid environment. So that's how I think the game should be built, and PvP should be the most important to balance between classes and specs, and thereafter PvE. But I don't think Turtle WoW agrees with me on that one. They have a big PvE community, and I'm just a PvPer who wants a Classic Plus, because I can't fucking retail. That's rancid piss. All right, that's it, guys. Once again, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and then I will see you guys in the next video. Out.
Turtles. Where are the turtles? Where are the turtles? Come on, guys, get out of here. Where are the turtles?